Hey, daydreamers, I'm so excited to bring you an episode today from the Why Not podcast that I was recently a guest on. I really wanted to bring you this episode because we talk about so many impactful things from my own journey from being employed to being an entrepreneur. And I really haven't shared a lot of that on the podcast yet. So in this episode, we talk all about how to make your dreams a reality, how to run a business that is rooted in service, and how to grow as an entrepreneur. The Why Not podcast is all about learning throughout life, exploring hobbies, and exploring new ideas. The show is hosted by my friend Linnea Turner. It's edited and produced by her as well. And I am just so pumped to bring you this conversation that we had on her podcast. Let's dive in. Hey, I'm Asher James, and in this podcast, I'm going to guide you to all of the tips and mindset shifts that you need to get you out of your dead-end day job and into living your own daydream. I'm so excited that you're choosing to show up for yourself today and to learn and grow as an entrepreneur. Now, let's dive into the episode.
Well, I'm excited to be here in the studio.
Yeah.
When I first showed up here, I'm like, yeah, this is sick.
Yeah.
Gotta use it.
It's really cool to be in this space and actually creating, because the last couple of months have been a lot of painting, putting in the floor. We've had contractors doing a lot of work, so it's going to be really meta for anyone listening today or watching, because we also are going to be recording this as a video if anyone's interested in watching that. It's going to be really meta because you're going to hear some construction, maybe a hammer pounding, they're going to be putting in the floor at some point. So it's going to be cool to just kind of hear all of that going on while we're in the space talking about it in the construction and how we've gotten to this point.
Yeah, so everything's still getting set up.
Yep,
so
absolutely.
Before we dive into that, do you just want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I'm Asher James. I run a few different businesses, kind of like a serial entrepreneur at this point. I originally started with my photography and filmmaking business back in 2021. And at that same time, I kind of saw this need for a co-working space and a shared studio space to bring people together here in our area. So that eventually led me into opening up Duluth Creative Co., which is my newest business that just opened in March and is a co-working space and shared studio space. So we have different memberships that correlate with different levels of access. But yeah, outside of that, being a photographer, filmmaker, and running the co-working space, I also love my family and my fiance Kaylee, our cats. We just got a new dog. We really love watching movies and TV shows and cooking dinner. And we're currently watching Frasier. We love going for hikes, and we have a cabin that we go to a lot during the summer. So
that's awesome. Where at?
It's over near Brainerd. It's a little bit south of there in Glen, Minnesota, on Clear Lake.
Super fun.
Yeah.
Oh. Are you guys from this area, or how long have you been here in Duluth?
So we met when we were at UMD, University of Minnesota Duluth, and we had a few different student jobs and run-ins that we kind of crossed paths a few times. And by senior year, we had a job where we were actually doing the same position. We were lead student advisors for the advisement and registration program, and that's how we really actually kind of started our relationship. And due to theory of proximity and being around each other all the time, some crushes formed. And by the end of the job, she turned up on my porch when she was driving by to actually go to the cabin. So that's kind of continuity there. She was driving by my house, saw me sitting outside, and texted me and said, "Hey, are you available? Can I come swing by?" Me not knowing that she had just seen me. I said, "Yeah, I'm just out on my porch. What do you need?" She's like, "Can I stop by?" And I was like, "Yeah, go ahead." So she pulls over on the side street, walks over to my house, and I'm like, "Hey, what's up?" She's like, "Hey, so this is really awkward for me, but I just want to let you know that I have a big crush on you, and I think that when we're done with our job, we should go out on a date." And I was like, "Let's do it," because I'm also sick of games, and I love how straightforward you're being, and let's give it a shot and let's have some fun. And long story short, 5.5 years later, we're engaged. We have a house together, our 3 cats, Shrek, Potato, and Bug. And then Daisy is our standard poodle that we just rescued about 2 weeks ago. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow. What does your fiance do?
She's a high school science teacher. So she teaches 9th grade, 10th grade, and 11th grade. And next year, she's going to be teaching a section of 12th grade. And I can't remember exactly what that course is going to be. But mostly she's teaching physical science, biology, and chemistry. So,
Wow, that's
yeah.
super cool.
Yeah, she's crushing it.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
So what did you study in school? Kind of like, how did you get to where you are now?
Yeah, so that's. Should I just launch into the whole kind of
launch into it? Yeah, I
the
love
whole
hearing
origin
people's
story?
like origin stories.
Yeah, so way back when I actually moved up here in 2014, I was going to school at UMD, right? So let me kind of back up there. So got into UMD.
Where are you from, like originally?
Great question. Yes, so La Crosse. So then I moved up here from La Crosse to go to school in 2014, and she moved up from Forest Lake. So that's where we met, Kaylee and I. But so for me, I was studying communication, eventually added on cultural entrepreneurship, which was just like really cool. Both of those majors are not what I would call like title majors. It's not like you're going to school and studying accounting to be an accountant. You're doing medicine to be a doctor. These just kind of left things really open-ended for me, which is throughout my whole life, I've really like ebbed and flowed through different interests and things that I wanted to be doing, or maybe jobs that I would have, or hobbies, or being in musical theater, or whatever it was. One of those things at the time was getting into filmmaking, and I was making a lot of YouTube videos. And I had a friend from high school who asked me if I would film their wedding. And so I was like, you know what, sure, let's give it a shot. So I rented some cameras, like how you're renting the snowball blank right now. And I just got some gear together, and I went and I shot their wedding. And I was like, you know what, this is really cool. I had no idea that you could make money being a filmmaker, just like using a camera for fun and creating something cool for people, documenting their wedding day. So then after that, that led to another booking. That led to another booking. At the same time, I was in school. But the problem became that since I was in school, had my job as a waiter, and was trying to build this business, I really had no idea what I was doing. And I just kind of lost balance in my life, and had clients waiting for their videos for like way too long. Like I was just super embarrassed, really high anxiety about it, just like want to get this done. So that burnt me out really fast. So I did that for like a couple years, only shot like maybe 6 or 7 weddings over those few years, and just didn't really know how to run a business. So then I pivoted into, higher ed and wanting to work at the college that I was at, and help supply the education and mentorship that I received from so many people, whether it was in like the Welcome Week program, or advisement and registration, orientation, things like that I had student jobs in. So I was like, oh, this would be so cool to actually do this for a living, because I'm loving the student jobs. I can't imagine what it would be like, just like a party every day, just like hanging out with people.
Yeah.
I was like, didn't know that you could do higher ed as a job and like work at the college. So then I kind of put the photography and filmmaking aside, and then decided to pursue that. So I had those student jobs, had an internship by senior year. And when I graduated, a job opened up in admissions. And so then I became an admissions counselor. So this was in 2019. And so then after graduating, stayed there, and then helped other people kind of find degrees that they're interested in.
Yeah.
Through the pandemic and working from home, just kind of wasn't getting me to where I wanted to be in life at that point. Like I was like, I really liked what I was doing. I had a great job, great boss, great coworkers. There was no reason for me not to be liking what I was doing, but there was just something that was leaving me unfulfilled. And so I started to kind of think like, well, what else could I be doing? Like what else could get me to where I want to be? What could give me more fulfillment? And so I started looking for jobs, and no other job out there was something that I was interested in. And I was like, man, I just don't really care about anything else, but I care about a lot of things, but they're all like things that I just kind of do in my own time or whatever. Yeah. So I kind of went back to the photography and filmmaking, and I was like, you know what, like maybe I could do this. So I started watching a lot of YouTube videos, education, signed up for a course. I ended up watching a lot of Eric Floberg on YouTube. He's a filmmaker and photographer out of Chicago, and has a lot of education on the wedding industry and how to be a wedding photographer, how to run a sustainable business, how to serve your clients. So I watched like all of those videos, and I kind of started to notice as I was then building my own photography and filmmaking business, and planting those seeds and reaching out on Facebook and getting, friends that were booking me for their wedding from college. And I'm like, oh, this is so cool. It's kind of coming full circle. I noticed in his videos that he was also creating a lot of his content in a shared studio space in Chicago that they called Creative Club Chicago. And I was like, how cool would it be if we had something like this in Duluth? And instead of just complaining and waiting for something to happen like that, I kind of heard enough times that I should just be the one to take action and do it. And I have no business like doing that. Like, I'm not some big corporate entity that could just plop down a business out of nowhere. So I just started putting that idea out into the world. So this was in summer of 2021 when I started the photography and filmmaking side of my business as well. So those two things were kind of like hand in hand. Like, I was building and growing them together and putting that idea out into the world of this like shared studio space that I want. Eventually, a year later, after having lots of meetings, talking with lots of community members and people in like business groups and all this kind of stuff in the area here in Duluth, my idea finally hit the right ears at a Twin Shores Wedding Association meeting. It hit Mariah's ears, who owns this building. And she was saying, hey, I'm going to be buying a building, and your idea sounds like the perfect fit to be one of our tenants in the space. And so, long story short, or long story long, I guess, that all happened. The building purchase went through. I signed out as a tenant, and then we started doing renovations in October 2022, and then really hit the ground running towards January, February, and wrapped up construction and renovations on our space on this side of the building in the studio and co-working space by end of February. And then we opened our doors on March 1st.
Wow. Yeah, you guys turned this around really quick. And it's pretty nice considering
it was really fun to just like take the creativity from like my photography and filmmaking business, which I kind of skimmed by, but like had over the last 2 years grown to a sustainable point that actually in December allowed me to leave my job at UMD to pursue that full time. And then during the off season in, fall into winter, fall 22 into winter of 23, allowed me the space to be able to kind of set that down and just like let that grow by itself, and then be able to focus a lot of my day-to-day attention on the Duluth Creative Co space. So that's for me kind of where I'm at and what I'm doing, and what fills up my days is a lot of, doing shoots for clients, whether it's weddings or couples. I've been doing more brand and business photography as well recently. Or if it's more on the Duluth Creative Co side of things, like giving tours or, talking to our members or cleaning the space and making it look really nice, or getting it ready for a shoot that someone else is doing because they're renting the studio. So that's just been really, really fun. And again, kind of what my days are filled of a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Did any of your coursework kind of help you throughout any of this process? Because like cultural entrepreneurship, that's like businessy kind of, yeah. Yeah. So do you think that sparked it maybe a little bit even?
So the interesting thing, and this is kind of controversial to any of my like former professors or people or mentors that would be watching, and I think that they would maybe agree with this too, but I think that college for me was really important in building connections and having that experience that we hear so much about, the college experience, I honestly think I learned more from that practically outside of the classroom than I did in the classroom. In the classroom, I learned more theory and built more skills and kind of learned how to learn and learned how to question and do research and how to think. Outside the classroom, I would say is what I learned more like boots on the ground through my jobs, internship in student affairs, and helping run the orientation program. So it's kind of a mix. And when I was an admissions counselor, I started to feel that kind of inner conflict where I was like, man, like I love UMD. I love my time at UMD. I loved all the things I was involved in. I was in Greek life. I was in choir. I ran my own business. I loved my majors. I loved communication. I love cultural entrepreneurship. But there was just this feeling. I was like, man, now that I'm out of that and I'm not like pursuing a job that I technically need a degree for, I'm running my own businesses. Part of me thinks like, did I need to do that? Or was that just part of my journey, right? And so I wouldn't go back and change anything, but I would like to encourage any other like students, high school students, college students that are listening. Like, I think that college is great and it can help you get to where you want to go if that's something that you need to get there, that degree, right? It can also open a lot of doors for people, for underprivileged communities to progress into like a new chapter of life and get new opportunities. So I recognize that there's a lot of benefits, and I don't want to come at this from like a place of inherent privilege saying like, oh no, don't go to college, just like create your own job, make your own business, you're going to be great, like there is no failure. Like that's all somewhat true, but what I just wish is that we had more of a dialogue on college not being the only option for students moving forward, or even creatives specifically, but that it's a option that can help get you to where you want to go. But I want to kind of start to end the narrative of like, you need to go to college to have a life, right? Yeah, exactly. Especially in the entrepreneurship and business space, especially as a creative entrepreneur. I don't know, like it's hard. Like I personally, I think have had a huge learning curve in the actual building a business, and just like the saying yes, the taking action, the filling out the forms, the talking to a business counselor, like applying for the grants, putting in the work, making the mistakes, course correcting. I honestly think that I've had just as much experience in like 6 months of opening this place as I did probably in my whole 4 years of college. Now, that's easy to say in retrospect, but I don't know. Yeah. That's just kind of my opinion that I guess I have formed, but also I have not totally formed. It's kind of like a working opinion. We'll see.
No, but I think I get what you're saying. Like maybe something you're kind of going at is just like the structure of college. Maybe it's just like it doesn't fit everyone. Totally. Like people realize that, but like we still force it, especially like the 4-year degree, and then you just like have all those requirements, and like those just don't work for people, and then it shuts their brain down, and like then they just full on don't even want to learn anymore. Yeah. So I think it's a lot of big system changes that need to happen.
And I think that it is structural, like what you're saying. Like I feel like part of the reason why the first time around my photography and filmmaking business failed during 2014 to 2016 was because A, I didn't have enough time, and B, I didn't really know how to run a business. And then C, it was hard to run a creative business and be able to put in that energy into editing and creation when the rest of my life was so structured. Mm-hmm. And so education in a way is kind of corporate-y. Like education teaches you how to have a job, basically, right? And so for me, I didn't want to learn how to have a job. I wanted to kind of make something of my own. And I think that doesn't always align with existing coursework. But I think that colleges recognize that. And that's one of the coolest things about cultural entrepreneurship, kind of looping it back to that experience. That major helped me realize that there are so many different ways that you can make a living, and so many different ways that you can pursue life moving forward, that it doesn't have to just be one job or one career. You can pivot every few years. You can try this business. You can do that. So being able to hear from so many entrepreneurs in our community and people that came into class to speak, and then just like some of the coursework on the theory of like creative placemaking and creating a space out of nothing or repurposing it. So like Duluth is like a really good example of this kind of idea of creative placemaking, because it used to be like Canal Park, big like shipping yard, right? A lot of industry down there. And then I don't quote me on this, but probably towards like the 70s, 80s, 90s, it just wasn't being used at that volume anymore. So there were a lot of buildings just like sitting down there, not being used. Then you have, this place called Grandma's come into play. So there's a restaurant down there now, and a lot of the tradesmen are like, eating there. And then maybe that grows into there's a hotel. Now there's a park. Now there's a lake walk to walk on. So all of this is about taking something that existed and then reigniting it with industry, reigniting it with businesses and creativity and restaurants, and creating this place, creative placemaking, for people to come to and spend their money and meet each other and participate in the local economy and support our local makers, brewers, chefs, entrepreneurs, all that kind of stuff. So learning about creative placemaking for me in the cultural entrepreneurship program is one of the biggest things that stuck with me, because what it showed me is that you don't have to just like condemn a certain thing in life because it's like not moving forward. You can make something out of nothing, which is kind of like what we did here in this building. It had been vacant since 2016 and like probably wasn't renovated or had anything really aesthetically done to it since the 70s. Like when up here in the studio, there was carpet on top of carpet, which was glued down to wood, which was glued down to wood. the walls and the colors and everything were just awful. So we've just done so much work to respect the history of this building, but create it into this new place that can host people to create podcasts. This is super meta, or like photography or filmmaking or education. Have the co-working space downstairs for people to have a space outside of their, living room couch or their dining room table, to be out in the world, because nothing's happening at home on your living room couch or your dining room table. Like where things are happening is out in the world with people. And so I think that providing that as a co-working space here in downtown Duluth for remote entrepreneurs or, side hustlers growing their own business, or solopreneurs, small teams, creatives, whatever it is, to just have a space to come together to not only get the work done, but to do it in community with like-minded people, so that you kind of have that sense of belonging and you have everyone kind of like working towards their own goals, but you have the support of one another to kind of do it together. So that mindset is kind of that's what I learned and took away from my education, and particularly in the cultural entrepreneurship program.
Yeah.
So
that sounds like a really cool program. I literally just heard about it last year, and like even going into college, I probably wouldn't have taken it because it's just like, what is that? What do you do with it? Because it's not like you were saying, it's not like, oh, you become a doctor, you become even a writer. Like it's just something very straightforward.
Totally.
But it sounds like a really cool program.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always kind of funny, like the joke in the program was kind of exactly like what you're saying, like, what is cultural entrepreneurship? Like, you can graduate in this program when you can define what that is. and basically for me, I just kind of said, like, it's the intersection of culture and the economy, and then how the economy impacts culture and vice versa. So that's at the end of the day, I think the most simplified definition is just the way that business and culture interplay with one another in local economies.
Yeah, that is really interesting. Cool. So like starting this business here, I mean, you technically have two businesses, like your photography, videography, plus this space. But starting like this business, what was like some of the hardest things you had to like learn on, as you did it?
Yeah. Finding money. So like I said, I'm not like a big corporate guy. So I knew right off the bat that to be able to take this space and transform it with contractors and putting in a new floor and painting almost every single wall in the place and getting all of the furniture and the lights and actually making it where it needed to be to open, that was such a big undertaking, because what I'm used to as a photographer, is you use what you have, because gear, there's this whole thing about like gear doesn't matter. It does, like it can help you create things that you're wanting to, that you have in your head, but you don't need the gear to stop you from creating in the first place. Like it shouldn't be an excuse to not create. Yeah. But when you get to a point where you can get better gear to tell a better story or make a better product, like then absolutely the gear does matter in creating that thing. That's why it exists, right? So anyway, but like where I come from is like you do the work and you use what you have, you bring in the money, you reinvest that back into the business. You get a new camera. Now you can make better things. That camera, you can raise your prices now because you're creating a better quality. People want your services. They see what you're making. They're connecting with your business. More money comes in. Then you need to push that money back out and reinvest into the business, right? So you get a new camera, you get a microphone, you get a light. So for me, growing my wedding photography business, I was never really in that much debt at one point. So getting a small business loan was just like a concept that I was totally unfamiliar with. And so I knew, because of the cultural entrepreneurship program, I knew of this local lender business, whatever, called Entrepreneur Fund. And they do business like coaching and education, and then partner with people on small business loans. And so they will secure those and be the lender for you. And then you can use that for whatever your needs are. So I didn't have any collateral to get a traditional small business loan. So I was talking to my business advisor from Entrepreneur Fund, and he said, like without any collateral, and if you're using this mostly for like physical things that could then act as the collateral for the loan, we could do like a $25,000 loan. And in the business world, that's not like a lot, but that could get me pretty far to opening the doors. Okay. And so that loan basically covered everything that you physically see in the space minus labor. So I'm still paying the contractors and all of that, and And as we're bringing in more memberships and have more bookings in the studio, all of that money is just going back out to the folks that help make this place happen, such as paying the rent to the building owners, such as paying the contractors. And then when that ends, when I'm all paid up, then we'll actually be at a sustainable point where we're making money. But as of right now, the biggest success that we've had is just making monthly revolving budget. So then I can pay the loans on a month to month basis. I can pay the rent, I can pay for all the services that I use to run this space, such as the app and everything. And that is a really huge success. But also a really big challenge because it's just so slow. Like the loan is like I think a 7-year loan, 7 or 8 year loan. So it's like, I'm thinking so far ahead into the future and I want it to be like paid off right now, because of who I am. I'm just like, no, I don't want to carry any debt. So that's something I'm working on, but it's all just kind of a balancing act. And I think that people think it's really scary to reach out and get a business loan. And it's this huge process, and starting their own business is just, I could never do it. And what I would want to say to folks is like, look at me as an example, someone who has probably more debt than assets. And I was able to secure a small business loan to open this space, and we are making money. We are sustainable. We're able to provide this service for our members. And yeah, it's a long-term plan, but it is working. And I think that a lot of people think that there's just not that space for them. So one of the kind of the more philosophical things I want to do is provide just that example of like, hey, look at what we did with this space. Like, get the space that you're looking for rent, buy the building, start the business, plant those seeds, water the garden, and then watch those crops grow, because that is how you're going to make something happen. Like constantly thinking, like, oh, what if, or constantly challenging yourself or feeling this imposter syndrome that you just can't do it is just not going to get you anywhere. It's just not. And I know that kind of comes back to the title of the podcast, like, why not? My whole thing with like starting a business, I was like, why not? Like, why not just give it a shot? And why not take the risk? Because it's a bigger risk if I don't, right? Like, I'm risking more in my whole life, in my trajectory, in my career moving forward. I'm risking more if I don't take the action right now. So I just thought, like, again, why not? So let's just make it happen and move forward and plant those seeds. And then that turned into this space eventually. And I think that a lot of people need that instant gratification as well. But when it comes to business, it's really about the relationships. It's about giving it time to breathe. And it's about living your life while growing the business and not having the business overtake your entire life, or not like letting your life, get in the way of like being the excuse for you not starting your business. One thing I heard from like my business coach was like, there shouldn't ever be any work-life balance, right? You shouldn't be balancing. Can I swear on this podcast? Yeah. You shouldn't be balancing like a shit life with a shit job, right? Yeah. You should be living an amazing life and have an amazing job. And the best way to do that is by not creating this division between the two, but have your life be informed and supplied and supported by your work, and have your work be driven by your passion and everything that you have in life. So like, I think that we think so much about work-life balance, but really like, I hate the concept of a 40-hour work week, because I don't have 40 hours worth of energy inherently as a human being per week. Some weeks I have like 10 hours of energy. Other weeks I have like 100 hours of energy, right? Like there are weeks where I'm just like always working. I'm always writing an email. I'm always scripting something. I'm painting. I'm doing this. I'm doing that. And I love it. And I'm not burnt out because like I'm truly doing something that I'm passionate about. And I just think that so many people think it's so hard to be a business owner, and it's so hard to do that. Like, I could never think about doing that. It's so difficult. It's such a big risk. What I think is a bigger like risk, what I think is more difficult, is going to a 40-hour-a-week job that you hate. Yeah, that is way more challenging than being your own boss, right? Pursuing your own dreams. Even if you're making nothing, even if you're at rock bottom, is it really that bad? Like, think about your rock bottom. Could you come out of that? Could you crawl out of that? Once you hit it, is it really all that bad? Like, you could probably do something, plant some seeds, get a job, work in a cafe, work in a restaurant, get that 40-hour a week job to then grow into something that you're really, really excited for. And you want to put all that money that you're making into that business, and then that business will make you money in return. So anyway, wow, that was a big ramble, but I think that
I just know a lot of things. I had so many things I wanted to say, but I didn't interrupt.
Yeah. No, I'll kind of like set it there. Like, so I'll turn it back to you. Like, what about that like inspired you? Like, where are you at kind of in your journey with things?
Just bringing up the work-life balance thing really was interesting, because like I definitely feel like work-life balance is super important, just because like, yes, I do love my jobs with like the podcast and the communications. Totally. Like, it's been a blast, but like feeling like I have work to do all the time, like sometimes is a lot. Yeah. So like, that is just interesting that you're like, oh no, work-life balance is a thing. So that's just super interesting.
Yeah. And a lot of like what I'm saying, and a lot of like the rhetoric that I'm using, or like, you know, cool phrases that are really inspirational that maybe I'm saying in this podcast that people are connecting with, like nothing I have or that anyone has arguably is an original idea. It's not, I didn't come up with this. Honestly, like if I could contribute to the show notes, it would be like a whole entire book of all of like the people and podcasts and books and courses and videos, like all of these things in life, all these things that I've heard, all of these mindset shifts and changes are things that have been told to me. And I think that when you're wanting to get into a space to educate other people about how to do their own thing, you have to use everything that you've learned and then kind of boil it down into what's the most important to you, and then give that back out to folks. And I think that being in business is much more about that giving, especially when you're maybe wanting to move into education, which maybe I'll do in the future. I don't know. And talk, which is what I'm wanting to do with my YouTube channel, because I'm not doing enough things. But I want to talk more about like creative entrepreneurship and how to build a business, and really passionate about connecting with young people about that too. Like, being an admissions counselor formerly, like talking with a lot of high school students about what they want to be doing in the future. I've seen the creatives of the next generation, like the next photographers, like be so like kicked down because they're like, oh man, well, I got to go to school. I'm going to study business, and then, you know, get a job, and then maybe I'll grow my photography business along the way. And like, the only thing that I would say is like, imagine if you spent the like $60,000 to $80,000 that you're going to spend on your education. What if you spent that on your business? Like, what if instead of getting a education loan, what if you got a small business loan, got the camera, started the business, and actually just said, screw it, I don't need anyone else to tell me when I'm ready to do something. I'm going to do it right now, you know, and give it a shot, make the mistakes, take the action. Like, I don't think enough people feel empowered enough to do that. So a big kind of driver of me wanting to move into education is to help tell more people and show more people that they can do it, and that it's possible to chase what you're passionate about, and not have to adhere to like what society tells you think you need to do.
Yeah, definitely. You should definitely pursue that education role, because you'd be great at it. I love that.
Thank you.
I definitely want to talk more about your like YouTube channel, but before we do that, you just brought up like how all these different like people influence, you know, how you think and what you tell others. And then this also came in my mind when we were talking earlier. Yeah. But I recently got to listen to Jad. I can't pronounce his last name, but he's like the founder of Radiolab. Okay. And he said something at his presentation that like stood out to me that goes exactly with what you're saying. It's like, just do it, right? You just have to do it, but then also be patient. Yes. Right. So it's like, you want to get it done, but you also have to like do it when it's the right time. And then once you start it, you just have to make sure like you're doing it the right way, kind of thing.
And even if you're doing it the wrong way, it's great. Like there is no wrong way, because anything that you're doing, anything that you're learning, that you're just taking action and moving forward, that's what's the most important, right? So like, I 100% agree with all of that. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just taking a shot, right? Why not?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Okay. So then to your YouTube channel, you're trying to do like educational videos with that.
Yeah. Right? So it goes back to giving, right? Like I feel like I've spent so much of my life as a taker, you know, like I need to take in what other people are saying to feel empowered. I need to take in this education to learn how to do something, right? And now I'm at a point where I've taken in all of that education and I've synthesized it into my own life experience and taken what works for me, left on the cutting room floor what hasn't. And now what I want to do is give that back and continue in this kind of like flow of energy and of education and giving instead of taking or consuming, you know, being a creator instead of a consumer in a way. And so wanting to just connect with people. And I think that a really good way to do that is through YouTube. It's a search engine. It's evergreen content. Like, it's not like an Instagram post or a reel that like dies after a day, you know? I think that when you post a YouTube video, it's a longer format. It's more personal. It's a video. People can see you. And there's just like so many more ways to, I think, help and serve people in that medium that really interests me. And obviously would be a diversification of my own income. And maybe I would have, you know, my own students someday learning from me or like paying money. But that's so far off. Like the biggest thing I want to do right now is just give that free content, give like the mindsets that help me, and then just help other people grow and realize their potential. And when that starts to get to a point where people are asking me more and more for that, being able to craft a offer for folks or craft a course or craft a specific amount of time to really serve them and dive deep into their business, that is something that I'm going to be building towards. And I'm doing it all for free right now so that I can practice and educate myself through experience, so that when I'm actually in the future maybe charging for education or said thing or teaching a workshop, that I have the experience and the rapport with previous people that I can now feel so confident from lived experience of like, hey, I helped this person and now I'm seeing what they're doing. Like, I could help you do that thing too in your own business and your own path and journey. If you open up, you know, the hood of your business and let me kind of take a peek and let you know what I think you're doing amazing, where I think that you could be stronger and all that kind of stuff, and just really listening and helping other people with their pain points. So anyway, that is all to say that I'm starting with the YouTube. That'll maybe grow into a Patreon where I go a little bit more in depth, less edutainment and more actual education. Because YouTube is inherently like also about like click-through rate and thumbnails and, you know, keeping people's attention. So it's going to be a blend of education and entertainment. And then the Patreon could be more education. And then in the future, having like a full-blown course in whatever that is, or having students or doing coaching or doing one-on-one mentor calls or something, that would be something to move into. But yeah, we'll see. I know that like there's a lot of educators out there. It's like a really saturated space, especially for wedding photographers. But I think that there's not a lot of people that are doing it really, really well. And I think that that's what I want to do now for free. And then when I do have like a really good offer, a really good product that I would love to share with people, and people are wanting that from me, like that would be a really good time to give that offer out to people. So yeah,
kind of what you just were saying made me think, like, just with any content creation, there's just so much noise out there. There's just so much like really, really bad quality things. Like everywhere, like podcasts, videos, movies, like literally songs. So it's like, how do you break through? Like, how do you make sure like that this gets out? Like even my podcast, like it's so small. Like I get, you know, maybe 10 listeners per episode, but like I don't care. Cause kind of like what you were saying with like the giving and taking, it's like, like I just want to give this out because I know there's so many cool people that have cool stories like yourself that people need to hear, right? So it's just like, how do you get it known, you know? Just keep showing up.
You know, I think that that's the hardest part, is that like no one's paying you to do this, right? But it's in entrepreneurship, there's like this concept of deferred income, right? Like you're never actually working for free. It's just that the payoff comes later. It's deferred. So it's the same thing. Like if I, you know, when I started doing my wedding photography business, I can't just like pick up like an iPhone and be like, hey, do you want to pay me like $100 to go out for a session? Like, I've never shot anything before. You got to kind of like work for free and give someone something, and then they will give you something back in return. Like maybe, but don't expect it. But like if you do a really good job and you serve them, maybe they'll feel inspired to give you a good review. Maybe they'll feel inspired to refer you to a friend, you know? So planting those seeds and working for free is, I think, the best way to relieve yourself of any pressures of like money being on the table and having to provide a product for someone, but rather focus on the service of like how you're giving that to someone, how you're making someone feel. The photos could be crap. The podcast you're recording could be crap. The videos you're making could be crap. But they're a stepping stone to you actually getting better at that thing, because you're not going to get better if you get all like, anxious about it and you're like, oh, well, I'm just going to stop doing it entirely because I just don't like the way it looks. No, like, be resilient, keep showing up even when no one is listening, and keep putting that content out there, and your audience will find you, because people are starving for good quality content, and they're starving for people that they can actually connect with. And I know from like our first conversation, whoops, sorry, I hit the microphone. You probably heard that. But I knew from our first conversation that you had that exciting, like, giver's energy, that person that likes to listen and make like a podcast like this. That's why I was so excited to like be on it. Right. So yeah, the biggest thing, to just kind of sum it all up, is just resilience. Just keep showing up even when no one else does, because the way you separate yourself from the crowd is by doing things that other people aren't willing to do. Again, not an original thought. I learned that from my business coach, but it's like, do the things that other people in your industry are not willing to do. How can you innovate? How can you do something different that will eventually separate you? Or how can you not even do something different, but do something consistently, but with your own voice? That is what can separate you. You don't need to be like the next big, Mr. Beast or huge podcast or whatever, you can just start small and create your own little community. And all you really need to create a sustainable business into the future is just 1,000 true fans. And I know that there is minimum 1,000 people out there who would love to listen to content like this, There's probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of people that would want to hear something like this. So it's just about like showing up consistently, getting better, and then providing more value for people, and making it about them and how this can help them, and not making it about like what you want to share and what you want to do. I think that like there's a book by Donald Miller called Building a Story Brand. And that has been like probably the best book I've read in the past year. It's all about basically making your customer, making your client the main character in the story. You are not the main character. People don't really care about you as the photographer and your history and your backstory. Like, great, you have a camera, like, but what I need is pictures. I need my life documented, right? So what you need to be is the guide. You need to be like the Yoda to their Luke Skywalker, and you need to help them on their journey to, protecting the galaxy. But you are not necessarily the person that's going to do that. You're going to help them do that. And that's through selling that product or giving that service. So I think that that's a much better way to approach doing business, when you're making it about the other person and not making it about your own success, which goes back to working for free. That should always be your core philosophy. Even when you're getting paid, you should show up as if they're paying you nothing, but they're also paying you $1 million. So you need to kind of like have that balance of like creativity and just like being yourself and not letting the money get in the way, but also making sure that you are receiving and that you can do this sustainably so that you can keep giving, right?
So, yeah. And it all comes down to just making sure you have passion to what you're doing. Because otherwise, you're not going to have the drive to like do well, or like just want to do it. Like, you have to want to do the work.
Yes, absolutely.
And love it, hopefully.
Yeah. Because if you don't love it and you're not loving your job, but you're your own boss, then you're being a shit boss, right? Yeah. Like you should not be your own worst boss, So pivot and do something different. And I think that that's the beautiful thing about entrepreneurship and about maybe, people like us or folks listening, is that like, we don't always want one path forward and one thing that we're going to do forever. Most adults in their lifetime are going to have like 5 different careers, not 5 different jobs, careers, like completely different industries. So I think that we often feel, especially in our age, like being in our 20s, like we're like, oh, I got to figure it out all right now. But like our life in a way hasn't even started yet, but we feel this huge pressure, which I think has a lot to do with like the darker side of comparison in social media, which goes into the ethics of the kind of content we create. And I think that we need more positive, inspiring content out there, more helping and guiding and educational content. And we need less content that's about us. Yeah. We need less content that's about like, oh, look at me, look at this, look at that, look at this experience I'm having. And I think that we need more that's like featuring something or teaching something. And I think that is a more sustainable way to consume and to keep growing instead of shrinking and feeling small, right? So
yeah. So like reflecting on just like some good content that you consume, like what would you recommend for like some good YouTube channels?
Yeah. I love the value and just kind of like ethos of Eric Floberg's channel. So it's Eric Floberg on YouTube or Instagram or whatever. Like he has helped me a lot with the mindset side of things and the why. Another piece of content I really like or person, educator is Jai Long. That's Jai Long, Long. He's a creative entrepreneur educator, business educator out of Australia. And I've actually signed up to both of these people's courses, both to Eric's course in 2021, and then I signed up for Jai's course this year. And both of those have really helped me learn more about mindset, more about business and how to run a business, because it's a template, and you can duplicate that with any business in any industry. Like that business is a fact. It's not something that you need to really experience, but it's something that can be learned and taught, right? So Jai really has a really good approach to that. And his course is just fantastic. So I've really enjoyed that. But he has a lot of free content on his podcast called Make Your Break. So if you're wanting to listen to that, I would definitely check that out. Books. When I was in my previous phase of life, when I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do, one of the books that helped me the most in figuring that out was, what is it? Designing Your Life. I think it's by Brian something, but it's a blue cover and it has kind of this like swirly like dot thing on the front. And it's basically these two professors who teach about lifestyle design and coaching and helping people figure out and build a life that they love. And it doesn't have to be just about entrepreneurship, but it could be about anything. They also have a companion book called Designing Your Work Life. And that is about how to have a better relationship with work in your schedule. So definitely would recommend Designing Your Life by them. I mentioned earlier, Building a Story Brand taught me a lot about sales and a lot about service and a lot about how to run a business and make it about the customer, the client being the main character, not yourself being the main character. It's always about them. They should always be getting the better end of the deal, not you. So Building a Story Brand was really good. Man, I could go on and on, but I think that's enough. I think, yeah.
Sound very cool.
I would definitely recommend all of those, as those help me get to where I'm at now, for sure. Yeah.
Very cool. Okay. And then you've already given like a ton of advice. It's been really awesome. But if you could either re-emphasize like one little piece or say something completely new, like what would that advice be to like, someone wants to start a business or like a photographer, just like someone, in this creative mindset?
Yeah. Come at anything you want to do from a sense of abundance and not from a sense of scarcity. So what I mean by that is like, I think that it's synonymous with being a taker or a consumer, right? Is kind of having a scarcity mindset. You need to, you're kind of like gasping for air. You need to bring things in. Like in a literal sense, in college, every time I went out to eat, I always felt this like huge need to eat every single thing on my plate, or I was wasting something, or I need to box up every single thing and take it with me, which is probably just like a long-standing learned mindset of scarcity when it comes to money. But I think that is inherently really limiting, and you're coming at it from a place of fear rather than excitement and joy and love. And I think that if you start coming at things from a sense of abundance and just like, if I put this out, man, the world's going to be so much better. Like people can find so much inspiration from this. If you come at it like, I'm going to spend so much money to open a space that I don't have any of that money, but I know it'll find me because I'm wanting to give and put this thing out into the world, and just like using that theory of abundance, like there can never be enough. There's so much opportunity. I think that is a much more inspiring place to come from doing business, and is going to be more sustainable moving forward, because it's more grounded in giving rather than receiving and taking. And receiving is different from taking, because receiving is inherently like someone is giving you something and then you are receiving that with gratitude. That is huge. Taking is completely different. Taking is trying to like siphon something out of someone, or constantly like wanting to get the best out of every little situation. And it's like, what you really should be doing is thinking about how you can give someone else value. And then, yeah, maybe that'll come back and help you, but don't ask for it. Unless that is your business. This is different from like setting like your prices and stuff. You're obviously asking for a certain rate, but I think that's a little bit different. But when it comes to just mindset, I think come at things from abundance, take the risks, do the things that you got to do to make something happen, take action, and don't just let things just kind of like boil in your brain, because then you'll feel like, if anyone has ever felt like they have so many ideas and no time to do anything, it's because you're spending so much time thinking of those ideas and not enough time doing those things. So do those things, start checking those things off the list. And that is what's going to create more abundance for you in your life and people that are around you that you love.
Yeah. Wow. That is awesome advice.
Yeah.
That's good. We could definitely stop right there, but I won't, because I one last time come back to your business and then kind of just like, where is it at right now? And then, where are you going with it? Because like you have different membership plans, and I mean, it seems pretty busy already. Like there's some members down there that like I haven't seen. I've been here a few times, and just what's an update?
So I have my Asher James creative business, which is the photography and filmmaking. I work primarily in the wedding space. So if there's anyone that's listening that is in a relationship and wants to do some photography or any videos or anything, whether it's an engagement session or maybe you're already married and you want to do a family shoot, like you can check out my website, asherjamescreative.com, to book that in. And you can fill out the contact form, check out my portfolio, and I will have a response for whoever fills out that contact form within hours. I think that like, I just want you to know how excited I am to work with you, and how I'm going to show up and give you like my absolute best and my full attention. So there's that. Also with weddings, like I do like the filmmaking side too. So that's what I work on a lot. Any businesses that want to like work together in like content creation or branding, I'm going to be working with a realtor and making social media education content about the housing market for their maybe prospective clients or buyers. For the Duluth Creative Co. side of things, that is the co-working space and studio. Memberships are open right now. We have 3 different tiers. Tier 1 is $150 a month for a 15-day co-working pass for that month. Also 4 hours of conference room time. Tier number 2 is a 24-hour, all-month-long pass. You get your own key and everything to the co-working space, and 8 hours of conference room time. 2 hours of studio bookings. And then tier 3, you have a dedicated desk, you have unlimited bookings in the studio, unlimited conference room time, all of that value and so many more things packed into that for only $350 a month. So I really like wanted to overvalue the third package, because that's where I think people are going to get the most out of using this space, is by basically it is your own space, no matter what membership level you're on. I tell every single person I give a key to, I tell every person that signs up for a membership, this is no longer a space that you are just visiting. This is your studio. This is your office. This is your place of work. You can send your mail here. You can have your client meetings here. You can make an Instagram and say like, hey, come on down to my studio. I have some open office hours today. I'm going to have an open studio day, whatever it is. It's not a space that you're inherently like renting or anything like that. You're a member. It's yours, right? So that's how I want people to feel and behave when they're here. Is that it is your own space. So. Yeah, and those are live right now. Tier number 3, we are 50% of the way sold out. We only have 9 available spots. Well, technically there's 10 spots, but I'm the 10th. So there's 9 available. So we have 5 out of the 10 desks available are sold or that currently are in a membership. But we do have 5 more dedicated desks available. So that's a sit-stand desk in one of our 2 private suites. So there's 5 desks in each suite. So I guess it's not private, it's more of like a shared suite. But sit-stand desk, chair, light, and then all of the other amenities that come along with that membership. So
yeah, very cool. That's a pretty awesome space. So hopefully more people come out and check it out. It's cool for sure.
I love it. It's cool being here in this energy and all the work that's put into it by all of the amazing like contractors, and it's been a dream.
Yeah, that's awesome. So has this truly been like your biggest why not, just like starting this space here?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I'm like speechless when I'm looking at like how far we've come in such a little amount of time. Like if I look back a year from now, I'm like sitting on the floor of my office crying. And I remember I took a selfie of myself sitting on the floor because I never wanted to forget how I felt in that moment. So in every decision that I've made, whether it's been big or small, I've said to myself, why not do this? Because I'm already unhappy sitting on the floor of my office crying. I can really only go up from here, you know? And things could be much worse. Like, obviously I had a job. I was in an office. Like, I had the house. I had a wonderful partner, and I, still do. We're engaged now, So I want to just like recognize all of those things. But when it truly comes to like fulfillment and passion and being able to give, that was my biggest why not. It's like, think about all these things I can do. Why not give it a shot? Why not try and put in the work and take the action to make this become a reality?
Awesome. Well, I think that's it. Thanks so much, Asher.
Thank you so much for having me.